Biden announces he's running for president and starts out the gate by calling Barack Obama an articulate African-American candidate.
Such a clean start to this show. It's not
Clean
that
as a
funny
whistle.
enough. Al Franken's running for the Senate. That and more right after this.
Many of the materials we rely on every day come from the ground, and modern mining technology brings them to us. You can learn more about America's natural resources at nma.org, the National Mining Association.
From the Watergate Building in Washington, this is Hotline TV. Now here are Hotline editors Chuck Todd and John Mercurio.
It's Hotline TV. I'm Chuck Todd.
And I am John Mercurio. Earlier this week, Senator Joe Biden formally announced his bid for president once again, but had his own mini-Macaca moment almost immediately after his announcement. Chuck, how does Biden recover from putting his foot in his mouth, and how does he distinguish himself, do you think, from everybody else in this race?
Well, the thing is, he did distinguish himself from everybody else in this race.
Right.
He did a very good job of that. As Bill Kristol said, it was very clever, Joe Biden. He knew he wasn't going to get on the front pages of America's newspapers
Right.
with an announcement. Wasn't going to be the lead on the NBC Nightly News, ABC, and CBS, and lo and behold, he figured out a way to.
But is it ever good? Is it ever good to have a front page story in the New York Times with a headline that has the word "oops"?
I know. Hey, look, let's be realistic. This was always sort of a long shot. The problem Biden has, that I think Biden really never has appreciated, is the press corps is burned out on Biden.
Right.
And they will write. They have a knee-jerk. It's an unfair. I actually think he gets the most unfair coverage. It's
Right.
unfair.
It's very unfair. Dana Milbank wrote a sort of low-hanging fruit story. It's the same problem. It's the same problem I think John Kerry had with the Iraq joke. Look, I don't think Biden is a racist. I think that he meant to say clean cut or meant to say clean as a whistle.
That clean thing bothers
But the
me.
media, I think, responded to it in a way that said, we are sick of you, in the same way that they responded to the John Kerry thing. Nobody thought that John Kerry was calling troops idiots.
Right.
People understood the excuse.
When you fall into your stereotype, particularly on your first day as a candidate, it's done.
But is that Biden's stereotype? I mean, the stereotype isn't that he's a racist.
No, but the stereotype is that he
he's
puts his foot.
windy.
That's right, windy, and he puts his foot in his mouth. I mean, here's the thing. He has a chance to respond on the clean part of this thing, which to me was the really questionable part of this thing, is implying that somehow Jesse Jackson and Al Sharpton are dirty.
Or not. I think he meant clean cut. He meant clean
All
cut.
right, but let's still an odd thing to say.
Sure.
But what does he come back
still
and say?
odd, but clean cut.
And he says,
is,
"Well, my
clean
mother
cut
had
is different than unwashed."
And my mother.
I can't believe we're having this conversation.
My mother said, clean as a whistle, tight as, and I'm thinking, no, say ethically, say something about ethics. Could have turned it into that. Still, it's a shot at Jesse and Al Sharpton.
Sure,
but
that's okay.
It's at least it's a political shot rather than an ethnic shot.
Sure. And the thing about
Obama's response, by the way, brilliant. To go on the articulate, it allowed him to do something he wasn't able to be before, which is black.
Right. Right.
No,
but the thing about it,
but
the two responses. The one response he gave to the New York Times, and then after Jesse Jackson and Al Sharpton started to come out, he was a little more forceful. You could tell he was sort of being pushed a little bit by a lot
but
of
I thought he struck the right tone. I thought he did a good job.
I mean, not to sound too gloom and doom for Biden, but look, he and Dodd and Richardson and Vilsack, very little room for error in this situation.
Exactly right.
They need everything to go right for them in order to sort of move up into the top tier.
It's not fair.
It's totally not fair.
They're being held to a different standard, and you know what? Biden's going to find out on April 1st, April Fool's Day,
right,
when those first quarter reports come out,
right,
how damaging this was.
And he had a lot of interesting things, I think, to say about Iraq. That guy, and we're not talking about those, are we? We probably wouldn't talk about those either. And that's what he's complaining about. He shouldn't have done this. He should have done what he was already doing, as Chuck and I both advised him on Hotline TV.
To be the best Biden he can be.
To just be the best Biden he could be, and not actually hold a formal announcement, and just sort of ride out, keep announcing slowly but surely. Every time he goes to South Carolina, say, "Oh, by the way, I'm running for president."
What was our advice? Don't announce.
That's right.
Don't announce.
Do the non-announcement.
Judy Miller, John.
Yes, ma'am.
Testified at the Scooter Libby trial this week, and oh, jeez. How was that aspen tree of hers doing?
It's twisting and turning, and the winds are blowing, and she is this dark, mysterious, velvet-clad prison.
Nora Macavana, one of our staffers, would like us to reenact.
Friend of the show.
Friend of the show would like us to reenact. Not quite ready to reenact, but the longing gazes that you think Scooter Libby.
She refused his glance. Look, I think a lot of people are following.
This was just unbelievable.
Well, the media coverage of it was, absolutely.
But I can't.
We're referring, of course, to the Scooter Libby trial ongoing this week. Judy Miller testifying. She slept on a jailhouse floor for 85 nights in order to protect her once secret source.
Her man.
And now she refused his gaze. Look, I
dressed as a cowboy. Didn't recognize him in his cowboy get-up the first time she saw him.
I could imagine that.
Don't we all like to dress up as cowboys
Look,
sometimes?
I think that this is the way people are trying to spoon-feed America, by people I mean the media, trying to spoon-feed America this extremely complicated, difficult story. And this, I think, is a great way to do it, frankly. Let's be honest. The only way you can get this story as a reporter onto your front page is to sort of weave in this bizarre, potentially totally erroneous account of these, theory about the relationship between the two.
It's unbelievable. I mean, you read this thing and you're like, okay, all right. It's like, it reads like a bad Judy Blume novel, you know. They broke up.
There's no such thing as a bad Judy Blume novel.
And spurned lovers and stuff like this. I mean, it was
forever.
Clearly revenge of the media on Judy Miller, because Judy Miller probably is the single person that has done more damage to the media's credibility, her and Dan Rather, in the last 4 years than any other two journalists. So I do think that there is this knee-jerk anger at her by a lot of journalists, and it came out in the coverage.
But if that were the case, then in the scenario that we're painting, she wouldn't come across as the sympathetic figure. This woman who did everything she could. Think about it. If you separate yourself from the facts of the trial,
the sympathetic figure in this.
In the scenario that we're painting, she's the person who slept on the jailhouse floor, protecting her source, and now she's being spurned by Libby, who glared at her throughout the trial.
Did he glare or longingly stare?
He glared.
I think he longingly stared.
I think he glared.
Well, let's move on.
We have such a disagreement on that issue.
Yeah.
Al Franken, speaking of somebody we can glare at, is set to announce later this month that he will challenge Norm Coleman for his Minnesota Senate seat. Chuck, is this the worst thing to happen to Minnesota Democratic Party? Are they still laughing too?
No, I think they're cocky. I mean, I think they say, hey, we beat Mark Kennedy, perhaps as good of a Republican candidate as the party could have found, a CPA, sort of quirky Minnesota quirky, center-right politician, not really right-wing, and he got trounced. I mean, he lost by 20 points, and it was on Iraq. I mean, you know, Minnesota, when it's sort of one of these states, when things are going good, they'll flirt with Republicans. Right? But when they're upset about something, they go back to their roots.
Right.
And the roots of this state is the Democratic Party roots. And I think that basically Franken very smartly is looking at this and saying, I'd like to be a senator. This may be my only shot, and this may be the best opportunity I'll ever have. Now, I think Norm Coleman...
The gut check tells me that is the biggest mistake the Democratic Party in Minnesota is making.
That's true, but who else do they have? Let's be realistic. Who
They
else
got Colin
is there?
Peterson, you know, they got somebody.
Those guys don't want to run.
I was going to say they got a lot of qualified Democrats who could run but don't want to.
They don't want to run. So
they
who do you
have
put
sort
up?
of
Mike Cerisi?
underqualified Mike Cerisi, Mike Hatch. You put up sort of underqualified people who've already run statewide.
Suddenly,
and
Franken
lost.
doesn't seem that bad. He's not perfect. He's got some flaws.
The
he did a lot
RNC
of
has already come. I mean,
no question.
Coke. RNC has already come out with he's got a huge paper trail, which I don't think a lot of people realize. He's said a lot of things.
But ultimately, first of all, Minnesota has shown a history of liking people like this. Jesse Ventura, they sort of like crazy, outspoken kind of guys.
I think that actually, to be honest with you, Ventura is a bad example because I think a lot of people in Minnesota were burned on the Ventura experience.
Could be.
They went with him. They took a gamble. He was sort of the everyman. He was the non-politician, and he absolutely destroyed any goodwill that people would have in Minnesota.
He's not
for
the best
candidates
candidate.
like that.
He's not the best candidate. It doesn't mean Norm Coleman's any less vulnerable.
I think Bob Franken, CNN correspondent Bob Franken,
who is a second
would
cousin,
be a much better candidate.
He is
Indeed,
a second cousin.
Indeed, he is.
Look, I think Coleman is going to regret the day that the convention came to St. Paul, because it's going to paint the Republican Party as a conservative party, and Norm Coleman is not going to be comfortable in that party. He's going to, and if Iraq is still the main issue, it's not going to matter who the Democrats put up, Al Franken or Bob Franken.
The one thing Al Franken will do, obviously, aside from make this race interesting, he'll be able to raise the money. He's going to have a lot. He's got to be careful how much money he raises.
And Coleman will be able to raise money against him.
Right, they both got to be careful where they raise their money, though. I mean, Franken can't be raising all of his money in Hollywood.
Norm Coleman, though, is a New York transplant.
Sure.
So it's not, this isn't going to, and his wife's a Hollywood actress. So, you know, he's going to have to walk that fine line. He can't overdo it.
Right.
So we'll see. It's a great race. We're happy.
We're happy. Yes. Thank you so much, both.
Finally, Rudolph Giuliani, despite moving in with two gay guys and after leaving his second wife.
And a Shih Tzu, as we may recall.
The Shih Tzu, which did get...
the Shih Tzu hit the fan.
You know, Great scoop by the Political. They actually got the names of the Shih Tzus.
Nice.
That was their big scoop this week. They still have a shot at the Republican nomination.
Very revelatory.
Because many conservatives are so turned off by McCain. Romney's having this squeeze of, the squeeze play put on him, or is he a real conservative? So suddenly Rudy's sitting there and he's played this I'm not going to poke you in the eye mantra with conservatives, and he's not looking so bad anymore. Or is he? Or am I crazy?
You know, Chuck, we've discussed this many times. You know what I'm going to say. I don't think Rudy Giuliani wants to run. I think he's showing a lot of the same signs of the way that he behaved in 2000 when
just hired
the Senate
South Carolina,
race. He
New
hired a lot
Hampshire,
of good,
Iowa.
He hired
These
a great staff in 2000 to run for Senate, and then a lot of things happened in 2000 that made his personal life seem like something that he didn't want to take on the campaign trail, and that's why he dropped out of that race. He doesn't show the will or the gut or the stomach to run.
See, this is why I'm starting to doubt myself. I was with you in this, and but I've heard little weird whispers. First, apparently
whispers.
Apparently, he
sounds
promised
like the Scooter Libby trial.
Apparently, he promised his dying mother that he would run.
Ugh.
That his mother really wants him to run, and he promised her he would.
That
his
is
wife
weird.
is very into him running.
But is his wife ready to be First Lady of the United
States?
Judy
from what I understand, she's into this idea of him running. So, everybody.
Are they going to stay married throughout the campaign?
Right, smarty pants. It's not just the outer circle that's pushing Rudy, which is what happened in the Senate race, but there truly is an inner circle that seems to be encouraging.
All right. Okay, once you get beyond the idea, beyond the idea of whether or not he actually will run, what happens when he actually does run and he starts running in places like South Carolina or Iowa or New Hampshire?
I think that we're seeing Romney take the brunt of this a little bit and get squeezed a little bit, and he's being the target. I think Rudy has played this smarter by saying, look, I'm not, you know how I stand over here, but I'm not going to talk about it. I'm not going to poke you in the eye with it. The question marks I have on Rudy is, can he hand-to-hand campaign in Waterloo, Iowa? Is he going to be comfortable in Council Bluffs?
Well, that I don't
know.
doubt, because that he has done. That he's done for the past two.
Stuff. He's done
he did
speeches.
In 2002,
he's
2004, and 2006.
Has he done this?
Has he done? I don't think he's ever done this.
I don't think he's done this.
I think he needs to do more of this. I think he needs to come on Hotline TV, convince me, John Mercurio, that he actually has what it takes to be a senator. I'm sorry, president.
Thank God.
All right, there's the 2-minute warning. Longtime liberal journalist Molly Ivins passed away this week. Let's bring it down. After a long battle with breast cancer. Very sad, actually. She was quite a woman. Chuck, what will you remember most about Molly?
I guess she gave the nickname Shrub.
Shrub.
Right? If it wasn't for her, we wouldn't have W being known as Shrub.
And her buddy. Ann Richards, who also died this year. Poor George.
That's right. Texas been tough on Texas liberals lately. Congressman Loretta Sanchez accused Hispanic Caucus Chair Joe Baca of calling her a whore, something that actually Bob Dornan used to regularly call her when they would run against each other. John, have you ever called anybody a whore?
No.
And would you?
But I'm not above calling a certain someone foolish, ridiculous, silly, outlandish. Do they have Democratic primary challenges in Orange County?
Well, you think Loretta's in the bad.
Why is she? This is a 2-minute warning, so let's keep this short.
I'm on Loretta's
side.
Why
come out with this? Why come out with this? Why make a statement about this?
Because maybe Joe Baca's a sexist.
Maybe Joe Baca. Everybody knows Joe Baca's a sexist. But does she really need America to be talking about the fact that she's a whore? Does she want that?
She's not a whore.
No comment. At a recent campaign stop, Hillary Clinton said she had a lot of experience dealing with evil men like Joe Baca. Chuck, who do you think she was talking about?
You. Clearly, John Mercurio.
There's the buzzer. That does it for today's big show. Join us on Monday for another great episode of Hotline TV. For Hotline TV, you know who I am. I'm John Mercurio.
And I'm AC, damn it. We'll see you next time on Hotline TV.
Bye-bye.